I'm pleased to introduce tonight's speaker, and I think it's fair to say that, for me at least, Paul Sahre's work has arrived on the design scene not overnight in a single deluge, but rather has appeared as a constant presence over the last decade, gaining momentum in recent years. I, like most of you, are most familiar with Paul's cover and book designs, which, after literally just returning this weekend from AIGA's 50 Books, 50 Covers competition, stand out as thoughtful and iconic reminders of the potential for such design to engage and reward the reader. The arc of Paul's career to date has shown the remarkable capacity of evolution and change, traits that seem quaint and old-fashioned in an industry obsessed with predictability and consistency. So in that regard, I look forward to hearing more about his work tonight and its trajectory. Please help me welcome Paul Sahre.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks for the invitation to come out and speak to you all today. This is my first trip to Minneapolis, and I do lecture quite often, and I normally am in a position where I'm needing to introduce myself, even though I've been doing this off and on for a number of years, as Andrew mentioned. I'm going to avoid doing that, or maybe I'm going to try to do that while I talk about some things a little bit more in depth while showing some work. I was reading the program really quickly here, and I guess I'm the healthy, no, I'm not the healthy sense of humor. I was just told the other day that my work is not funny. It kind of sent me into a little tailspin, because I always thought I was really funny. Like, my work is really funny. My wife's like, no, it's not. It's not funny at all. You're kind of funny sometimes, but your work is not funny. Smart ass maybe, but not funny sometimes. Serious. I've been called serious. I can live with that, I guess. So I guess I'm preserving a sense of the creative self in the bigger picture, which leads pretty seamlessly into my office. So what I was originally thinking with this was a series of case studies. And I was really kind of interested in using this as an opportunity to maybe kind of get a little bit more in depth. So that's what I'm going to try to do. And I'm going to try to keep it to about an hour and 15 minutes, FYI. So my first case study, I guess, is my office itself. And since I'm from New York, maybe you're interested in where I work. I have a kind of a dumpy little office on 6th Avenue and 14th Street, Manhattan. As you can see, I'm above a Dunkin' Donuts. And I'm right above, actually on the second floor, another small dumpy office inhabited by a design studio called Carlson Wilker. So we have a lot of fun there. We have foosball tournaments, and it's my office, so I can bring my dog into the office every day. This is my business card. It's funny, every once in a while, someone, you designed that? No, I wouldn't have an office above a Dunkin' Donuts if I designed the Dunkin' Donuts logo. I also, I'm going to talk about my father a little bit in the influences case study. But since it's my office, I can have the nose cone to a Nike Hercules surface-to-air missile standing in the middle of it. Just that portion that I have squared out there. And because it's dumpy, I get to concentrate on work that I enjoy that might not pay so well, and sometimes doesn't pay anything at all. So of course I gravitate toward doing book jackets. And I've been doing these for a number of years. My studio in New York has been going since 1996. And this has been, for good and ill, my bread and butter since then. I was in Baltimore, Maryland before then, working at a series of unsatisfying jobs, but learning a lot. And I eventually was able to move up to New York. And I started doing some book jackets for a couple of really talented, amazing designers, one by the name of Michael Kay at Farrar, Straus and Giroux, and John Gall then at Grove Atlantic. I had gotten a couple of jackets through. One of them's on the poster, Oman Ra. And I remember talking to my friend James Victori about that time, and I was really excited because I was going to leave the advertising world and just come up and just do book jackets in a small office in New York City. And I said, James, like, who else should I go see? I mean, you know, and he's like, who are you working for? And I said, John Gall and Michael Kay. And he said, that's it. Those are the only two you can work for. That was kind of a bummer. And it wasn't exactly true at that time and now. Although most of the jackets that I do that you may have seen are done for 5, 6, 7 different creative directors, and that's it, even though I've kind of worked with almost everybody over the years. But, you know, designing book jackets, I love designing book jackets. You get to read, you get to be exposed to a bunch of amazing things that you wouldn't have necessarily been exposed to if it wasn't part of your job. Every once in a while, a project like this comes along. I have an interest in philosophy, so when John Fulbrook at Scribner called me and asked me if I wanted to redesign this cover, I said yes, and happily read all 500 pages. This is Chuck Klosterman's new book. Chuck has been a music writer for Spin Magazine, and highly recommend any of his books. I designed his last cover, Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs. And he's writing about popular culture and is heavy in the music, and he works for Spin and has an interest. This book is great. It'll be out soon. And basically, Chuck wandered around the country visiting places where rock and rollers died early, tragically. So he visited the field where Buddy Holly's plane crashed, and the place where the greenhouse was, where Kurt Cobain blew his brains out, etc. So, you know, with these covers, it's always a matter of trying to come up with an image that can capture the sense of the subject matter hopefully without giving too much away. It's rare that a writer will. It's also rare when a writer will. Actually, I'll get into that in a second. This is another cover, and this was a kind of one of those minor victories. This is a book called Killing the Buddha, and it's essentially a book about religion for the non-religious. And it was very satisfying talking the publisher into not putting any typography on the cover, which is no small task. But then again, the type needed to be much bigger on the spine. It's rare when as I said, reading is an important part of designing a book jacket, certainly. And it's rare. Normally the process is reading with a highlighter and post-it notes. And you're trying to find passages that help you understand maybe why the writer chose a title. You know, that's one place I like to start with a book jacket. That there's already a symbolic quality to a title. And of course, because you're designing with the title in terms of hierarchy, it's the thing you have to look at first. It's always going to be there. It's a presence going to be there. So I like to think from there back. And as I was saying, it's rare when an author will sum up the contents of the book for you. But Ben Marcus did that in his book, Notable American Women. I just want to read you this paragraph. It's on page 53. This is a chapter called What's Inside. This book fails the Wicks-Biner comprehension test. This book eludes the Ludlow plot distribution requirement phase detection, which sleuths linear progression and character continuity in texts purporting to be fiction, of which only a small number actually are. By a wide margin, this book fails to meet the coherency requirement for machinery manuals as determined by the Ohio Clarity Foundation. The Reader Memory and Nostalgia Club from Ohio scores this book a 6 out of possible 25 points, yet this book induced 415 false memories or recollections from the members of this club who were prone to insert events from their own childhood into the plot of the book. This book required 7 simplification batch processes on the language cleaner machine in order to render a legally binding 100-word summary of its contents for the annual brochure of all texts. The resulting 100-word summary of this book proved too legally similar to the Declaration of Independence to be included here. The Reading Wizard, a machine that scans and summarizes books to determine their themes and content, determined that this book was, quote, a documentary account of the role of the mouth in the art of deception and failure with a specific focus on children who've been buried alive. Now, design a book cover and make sure it'll sell. My second case study is You Are Who You Were. And after doing this for a while, you start noticing patterns even when you're someone who maybe tries to avoid patterns with their work. That's how I might describe myself. I mentioned my father. My father is a retired aerospace engineer. When I was young, growing up in Binghamton, New York, my father became the statistician for the local minor league hockey team. I had to get some hockey in here since we're in Minnesota. And this is something that he took on for their second season. The team was called the Broom Dusters. The logo for the Dusters was this great little logo that's in the lower right. The cartoonist, Johnny Hart, I believe his name, drew the logo. And my dad commissioned him to do the cover of the yearbook. And my dad, no art background or design background at all, compiled the yearbook, but also designed the whole thing with a typewriter. And it's all black and white Xerox, and it's all fantastic. And who could ever forget Rod Bloomfield? It's got this plastic wiro bind on it. My favorite part of the book, and I'm 9 or something, 10 maybe, when this came out. And this had a big impact on me, even though I didn't really realize it at the time, or not until really kind of thinking about it recently, when I stumbled upon this, because I haven't seen this thing in years. But my favorite part of the book is half the book. My dad compiled any media, any articles on the Dusters from their first season and collaged them all together. And that's what basically makes up half of the yearbook. So my dad, God bless him, with the pair of scissors, probably some rubber cement, no straight edge, no whiteout, and a Xerox machine, put this all together, and it's fantastic. It's really, really good. The other thing I wanted to say about the Dusters, they were in a league called the North American Hockey League. And if any of you have seen the movie Slapshot, this is the league that film is based on. In fact, Rod Bloomfield was Paul Newman's double in the film. So any of the long shots, Rod Bloomfield. Anyway, it's not an exaggeration. These guys did nothing but fight all the time. Brawls, bench-clearing brawls. Many of them I'm at as a 9-year-old. Sitting next to my mother, everyone else is standing up, kill him, throwing sodas and hot dogs, and my mom is sitting in her seat crocheting. A lot of great, grainy, and no kidding, in the movie there's a point where there's a bench clearing brawl before the game start. It happened, I was there. Dusters versus the Syracuse Blazers. And there was a guy, a lot of the people in the film were fictional, but they changed names subtly. There was a guy named Bill Goldthorpe who he had this huge afro. And he was locked in jail halfway through the season for, he had so many penalty minutes, he jumped over the stands a few times to attack a few fans. He ended up in jail. They changed his name to Oglethorpe in the film, but definitely get that film. It's great. The Dusters are the Ducks, I think. Anyway, my dad did some great things with typography. I love some of these decisions. Just cut right into that photograph. He wasn't too much of a. He wasn't the quality control wasn't quite there in '74, but you get some great stuff happening. I just love this. Commissioner wanted. Yeah, it's like, that's a big league. I mean, so there's a lot of this, and it's just wonderful stuff. Anyway, I designed a jump to 2000, and I designed a CD package for an artist named Jim White for Luwaka Bop Records. Very cool experience. Got to hang out with David Byrne and Jim White. Jim White's music has been described as hick hop. It's kind of a country Beck type of situation, and his album is called No Such Place. Jim had brought a whole bunch of crap to the table. He had drawings, and he had old newspaper articles, and he had all this stuff. And we were banging our heads trying to figure out a way to make it work. And finally we just said, you know what? Bring it all in there. Let's bring more in. So the design ended up being a collection of diagrams that Jim draws, photographs that he takes, and it folds out kind of like a map from the cover, which is in the center. And I think you can see the influence my dad's yearbook had on this piece anyway. This is the front and this is the back. I have a thing for UFOs, so I included some of that stuff. Most of this is lyrics, some of Jim's photography. All this was produced on the computer and then taken off, kind of laboriously Xeroxed 5 or 6 times, knitted back together in a real crappy way so that it had that kind of quality. And I think the thing that's most interesting about this is there's some details, some murky photographs, just great, like totally came from that earlier thing. This thing on the right is a chart on various UFO shapes. And again, you can see the direction or the connection there. I love that. I love when that happens. And it was totally something that just you're on autopilot. You think you're coming up with something new, but it's coming from someplace else. And although I love it, it does kind of creep me out a little bit when I am on autopilot, because I do think about this stuff quite a bit. And then there are times when I allow some stuff in my past to influence me consciously. My brother Greg he's my older brother, and he still lives in Binghamton with my parents. He's deaf and has a learning disability, and he's a great bowler. He also makes a lot of things, and one of his favorite things that he makes are these tissue boxes. I don't know how he got into doing these things, but after the Dusters left and they turned into the Binghamton Whalers, then they turned into the Binghamton Rangers. So my brother is always making tissue boxes. A lot of it's sports related, but he'll also give a Christmas gift every once in a while. And this I got from him, and it's just fantastic. In fact, I have this at the office, and every person who comes in is like, "Where'd you get that?" I tell them my brother made it. And they're like, "Can you make me one?" This is a top view. So it's just, Paul. He's pretty funny, though. I've asked him to do it a number of times. I said, "Look, we'll pay you." And he's like, "No." Unless the mood strikes him, he's just not going to do it. He's stubborn, which is just great. And like he does these photo shoots, it's like it's out in the snow. And they're made out of yarn. I don't know what you call this stuff. It's like a plastic, it's like a plastic grid, and you needle point yarn through there. Anyway, I love this series with the I love you symbol, sign language. And this one he did, and I just like, man, this is the coolest thing. This looks like a gay deaf cult or something. And so, I like, any opportunity. I had a lecture at Kansas University where both my parents graduated from, and I felt like, I have to bring something of the family into it. So I think the program mentions that I have a silkscreen studio in the back of my with in the back of my office, which I'm printing back there quite often. Normally when I'm doing a lecture, I'll do a small run of silkscreen poster. So this is a poster that I designed and printed, and I totally just wanted to take his thing and like clean it up and make it, you know, even more disturbing, hopefully. And so this is like a crazy 7-color silkscreen that I had then personalized by a 13-year-old girl. It was sponsored by Hallmark. I figured it made sense. This is a weird graphic design joke. It's like, okay, look, this is a laboriously hand-printed poster. There's only 40 of them in existence, and you have to write the information in. That's what I mean. Like, I think this is really funny. But nobody else does. In fact, these were hanging around campus, and people who came, they were just like... And luckily, after the lecture, they all went out and stole them. So, you know, none of them budged off the walls until after I spoke. I don't know what they expected. My third case study is long relationships almost never happen. And I can happily report, as a graphic designer, one long-standing relationship with a client. And this is a theater that I've been doing work for ever since I moved up to New York in 1996, Soho Repertory Theater. Soho Rep is this dinky, also a dump, and lately I've been starting to think that Soho Rep and my office are the same type of thing somehow. Some of the similarities are eerie. I mean, there's never any money. Everything's on a shoestring. You're always like multitasking till you think you're going to go crazy, late nights, etc. But it's all wonderful and worth it. I actually jumped ahead too quickly. So Soho Repertory Theater, I got a call from their artistic director, Daniel Auken, and I came in around 1996, and he said, well, we need a logo, and we need to do some posters that happen on the street. And we were hiring Pentagram, but we didn't like what they did. So like, you hired Pentagram, and now you're hiring me. That's cool. Just FYI, if you're ever doing a logo for a theater, don't put a chair in there. That's what they did for him. He's like, the chair. I mean, he actually got angry about it. It was such a stereotype that he just couldn't deal with it. So no chairs. Anyway, as I said, this is a 75-seat off Broadway theater. The thing Daniel told me the first time I met with him, he said, whenever we have any money, we put on the stage. I love that. They do great work. And they needed a logo, or an identity anyway. And when thinking about this, I just felt like, you know what, they have no money, and they have no way of getting the word out there. So instead of a logo, I gave them a sticker. I gave them an idea. And the idea is that these little round stickers, undesigned stickers, would be kind of a thing. They become their logo. It become a way to get word out on the street in New York. Sniping post is very expensive, especially now, and they can't do it anymore. So this was the only way to think about them actually having some kind of a street presence. So their logo is a sticker essentially, and so the business cards and letterhead and everything are all one color, and then they stick these cheap undesigned stickers on everything themselves. And it also works on the street in this way. Whenever there's a performance, there's a sticker made, it's stuck up everywhere. And then I also do, when I have time, a silkscreen poster for them. And we also do these crappy 4x6 cards, which sadly, it's just like in the theater world, the posters are kind of going away and these 4x6 cheap cards are taking over. And you just can't get excited about it. It's hard to get excited about a 4x6 card. But anyway, we do them, and we do some advertising for them as well. It's really small stuff, 16th of a page ads, in Time Out New York. Anyway, the idea with the sticker is that it hopefully will respond to, interact with in a different way to what's going on behind it. This was a play called Alice's Evidence, and it was kind of inspired by Alice in Wonderland, except it's set in a jail. Everything's gray. Alice is raped by the Mad Hatter and the bunny in one scene. So the sticker in this case is kind of a censoring device. What I did was I reappropriated the original Tenniel illustrations from Alice in Wonderland and made this rape scene out of them. And the dot is kind of in the important area. So, in this case, it's censoring. been using this dot for a number of years, and I was getting to a point where I couldn't deal with it anymore if I saw this dot one more time. So I started expanding it a bit, and now these are some fairly new things that we're doing for them. This is a poster series that we did. The dot has kind of been replaced, and it still works as a logo on the back, but the dot doesn't carry all the information like it used to. And so now we're just kind of starting to play with a similar type of sensibility almost. This was a series of posters for a play called The Appeal, which was kind of a weird comedy that involved Wordsworth, I think 3 romantic poets. I can't remember their names now. That's horrible. Anyway, these are the 3. So that element still is there, but it kind of, you know, some of the dialogue is like, Wordsworth, you're such an asshole. There's also kind of some techno music that's backed up by it. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. This is another poster for a silkscreen poster for a performance called Signals in Distress. This is one we just finished recently. I have a new designer who's helping me with these things. His name is Greg Grabowie. And this was a interpretation of Frankenstein that was kind of happened around Christmas. So we did a Frankenstein Nutcracker. And this is the most recent one. So it's kind of evolving. This is a kind of a disturbing play about a incest in an adolescent a girl's world. One of the funnest things about the theater is the street. There's a window display out there, and I commission, curate the window, and have since 1996, and have had some pretty interesting conversations with the creative director about the street presence of Soho Rep. It's on this little street called Walker Street, just south of Canal, and it's just no one ever goes down there. And there's no sign for Soho Rep, and Daniel for years has been trying to talk me into putting a sign out front, and I keep telling him no. Now I can do this because I'm on the board now. So I like the idea of kind of getting even more involved in what they're doing. So my theory is it's that New York thing where if there's no sign, it's cooler. And try to do the things with the window to make it, that's its signage. And so I've been able to hold them off for almost 10 years now, which I think is pretty great. Anyway, I took these up on occasion as well. These are right at eye level. This is a window that I did for a series of summer workshops. And what I did was I collected crap from the beach for 2 weeks and just hauled like 8 garbage bags in, painted it all yellow, driftwood, suntan lotion bottles, hats, discarded toys, condoms, syringes, crab claws, shells. It was mad. And it stunk to high heaven after a couple weeks, too. So I just filled it up. This was a window done by I think a former Walker designer, Connie Pirtle, who I absolutely love. I think is in LA now. This was for a series of workshops called Research and Development. And basically it's just a word piece where he's talking at the beginning about research and development and focus groups, and he at the end it ends with an anonymous man from Brooklyn recounted the winner. They were trying to come up with, the focus group was telling their best stories about focus groups. So the winner was, and if it wasn't for a girl named Amy, the only one in our group not to have been fired from at least one job in her life, Little Penny would have been laying wood on Vanessa Williams. Either way, I got my kicks free of charge. I still have no idea what that means, but love it anyway. And this was a window, so sometimes the poster really does tie into the window somehow. So these have been a lot of fun, and there's quite a body of these things now, which is kind of satisfying, and they're still going. Fourth one, things leave the office. That's a pretty simple statement. We make things at the office and then they go out into the world. And sometimes, given comfort at just kind of closing the drapes and making things in the office. Sometimes you wish they hadn't left. You don't want to let them go sometimes, especially if it's a little theater poster that you've made with your own hands. And I had mentioned silkscreening in the back. We try to do that as much as we can still. It's becoming harder and harder to do. Rent keeps going up and taxes keep going up. And the nature of the work is changing. But it's always so wonderful to get back there and kind of get physical with it and actually just kind of deliver a printed product to a client. This is a poster that I designed in 1994 for a theater, small, similar to Soho Rep, small theater in Baltimore called the Fells Point Corner Theater. After I left graduate school in 1990, I moved to Baltimore, Maryland, and approached a small theater. I had an interest in theater, and approached a small theater down there, and basically offered my services free of charge, and basically asked them to pay for expenses, and I would just give them 100 posters. So it started about a 5-year relationship with them. Love and hate, even though they got free posters. This was one of them. And the reason I show this slide wasn't necessarily to talk about the posters, really. One thing I wanted to point out, this was co-designed by David Plunkett, by the way. We spelled Sam Shepard's name wrong, which is still embarrassing to this day. There's only one H in Shepard. Famous American playwright, and we spell his name wrong. They didn't notice. So it's not our fault, right? The reason I bring this up is that we were using the stat camera. This was 1994, and we were still using the stat camera to make our art. And we achieved this effect by taking the typography out of focus at different levels. And I really liked the effect. And I was playing around with a program called Fontographer and had a Jones to make my own typeface. So an experimental theater poster led to, I guess you'd call it an experimental typeface, at least it was in 1994, felt like it anyway. I had an idea that in terms of, and it was kind of like I had grand plans for this. What I was going to do was I was going to think about a typeface that I loved in a way to create a variety in it and extend the family of a font in directions that hadn't been explored. So my idea was this idea of continual rounding and softening of a form so that there could be different levels of the softening. So instead of bold, light, medium, your book, medium, heavy, bold, rounded, extra rounded, I don't know, extra rounded, on until it couldn't be read. Well, after I started refining this typeface and realized how much work it was, I realized that I wasn't cut out for that. So I just threw them all together and made one typeface and just called it Fur Extra Rounded. So it's an erosion of Futura. And this is the entire set, or most of it anyway. And a lot of work. Sold it to T26. They'll take anything. And of course, the first thing I started to do when I made my typeface is I started to spell out things. Baloney's a great word. It's in there twice. These are some of my favorite characters. And then applied it to something I was doing that wasn't making me any money, namely a home brew that I was brewing in my basement. I called it Pop Skull. A number of the bottles popped before they opened, exploded, luckily not on people. So I applied fur this way and then vowed never to use it again. And then, as it's being sold out there, it starts popping up occasionally. I'd noticed something, and that sometimes other talented designers would get a hold of it and do something nice. This was Carlos Segura from T26 doing a logo that I kind of liked with my typeface. And every once in a while, a book jacket would pop up with it on it. Now, time is passing here. all kinds of crazy things you'd find it on. I was traveling to Australia a couple years ago, and they handed this to me in the airport. You know, just weird. Why? You're like, this isn't an experimental typeface anymore. If it ever was, it isn't. So, long story short, fur has wandered and wandered around trying to find its true reason for being. And finally, I'm watching the TV the other day, and I think I found fur's reason for being.
You gelling?
I'm taking a shelling, but I'm still gelling. Helen, you gelling?
I'm gelling and selling. Gelling and selling.
My trades are smelling.
Mine too, but who cares?
We're gelling. Are you gelling yet? Dr. Scholl's massaging gel insoles are made from the softest gel ever created. If you and your shoes don't feel outrageously comfortable, you get your money back. Guaranteed. Sell! He's so not gelling.
Kinda repellent.
Are you gelling? Dr. Scholl's.
Although they're putting counters in my E's. I gotta talk to somebody about that. Anyway, it's not, you know, fur has found its real reason for being. It's so awesome. It's so good. It's so funny. Okay, number 5, graphic designers can be weak. Weak, including myself. This is a cover that I designed, I think in 1999, for a series of stories called Demonology by Rick Moody. And this is a photograph that an image that I collaborated with a friend of mine, a photographer in Baltimore, Michael Northrup. And if you haven't read any Rick Moody, I would suggest buying this book and start with the story Demonology, because it's amazing. It kind of, I won't give it away, but it's about kids and nostalgia and Halloween and trick-or-treating, but there's a dark side to it. So we needed to find an image that could refer to that. It's kind of a weird title. And still also, so I like this idea of it doing something conceptual. It's kind of levitating. I like that idea. And everybody really seemed to like this cover. This is enough that the publisher then approached me with the idea of redesign, or the creative director, approached me with the idea of redesigning his backlist, which was kind of inconsistent. He had 4 or 5 books that he had put out, some of them pretty well designed, to make it consistent with this one, because this one apparently everybody liked, including Rick. So the first thought I had was, you know what, this isn't coming from the creative director. This is coming from an editor thinking, this book is selling, so we got to make the rest of them look like this. And so I knew exactly what they wanted. They wanted different color background, different object representing different story. And I really resisted that. I tried not to be weak. So what I tried to do was, what I tried to do, in a lot of ways I made it harder for myself. I wanted to try to do something different with it, but still have there be a conceptual twist, but think about the whole jacket maybe. It doesn't have to be in one image. So we have a different color background, but it happens to be the sky, and you have a nice puffy cloud. And then maybe the back it's a puffy cloud in the front, but when you turn the book over, it's venting from a nuclear reactor, something like that. I love this, and I thought this was a really great place to take that idea. For some reason, everybody really liked this. Rick didn't like it, and it got killed, sadly. And I was left with the choice of saying, okay, I don't want to do this other thing, even though it probably makes sense. So I finally said, all right, God damn it, I'm just going to do it. So I did it. I did this cover for Garden State. I did this cover for his book, The Ice Storm. And I did this cover for his book called The Ring of Brightest Angels Around Heaven, Cocaine in the Shape of a Halo. It's about drugs. So they're all in a different background, and they have this kind of glowy object, whatever, uncolored field. So I'm left with a feeling that I was a little lazy and maybe weak in doing this. And I've noticed since those books were done, something I had never really noticed before as it pertains to my work. I noticed some similarities in other books, book covers all of a sudden. And I'll just show you a few of them. Somehow teal now is the color. And I just, I know why this happens, but I think, and I think that's the thing that's most disturbing to me. It's not even, and in fact, I think a lot of these covers really are more of a reaction to the thing that was stemmed from my covers, this book, because it was very well received. It sold a lot of copies. I don't know how many. I didn't design any of these covers, by the way. I just went to the bookstore the other day just to check on it, and I was kind of amazed. Just within 10 minutes, I found this many books. It kind of freaks me out still. And again, I say I know why this happens. It happens. I think it happens because designers are weak in a lot of situations, especially at publishers. And I mean weak like not having any power. And I also mean weak in terms of not saying no when an editor says, it should look like this. But what do I know? The fifth one, once something leaves the office, it is out of my control. I'd shown you that jacket, Killing the Buddha. I'm walking the dog Sunday morning. I see this on the street. I'm like, holy shit. It's everywhere. It was all over the place. And it looked great. But there was no type on it. And I didn't know this was happening. I delivered the art for the cover, and I know they do some advertising once in a while. But this really made me start thinking, and I'm standing on the street with my dog, just staring at this with my mouth open, wondering why this is here and why it's here in this form. And I just couldn't figure it out. Knowing what I know about what it takes to get that on the wall everywhere in the city, I just couldn't understand how they could be promoting the book this way. There's no type on it. There's no reference to a title. It's a small book. And I'm thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And then I'm kind of like the Grinch. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. This is a book about, spirituality. So they just know that if you build it, people will come. And it was like the world was new. It wasn't the jaded New York anymore. It wasn't the jaded publishing industry. It was just kind of, somebody somewhere saying, no, it should just feel right. It doesn't need to have quotes all over it. It doesn't need to have, new. It doesn't need to have logos smeared on it. Quotes on top of quotes on top of quotes. So for an entire week, it's a new world. And then these replaced all the other really nice ones. And, I guess fairly tasteful in terms of having to put that much crap on it, but, Another example of how things can get out of control, or at least be beyond your control. I usually get calls to do weird subject matter like this, and I usually don't get calls to do books like this. And lately, I have a couple creative directors who are trying to get me to go more mass market. So I've kind of said, okay, let's give it a shot, There's no reason that a big book can't work. So this is a terrible book. That's the only problem. You have to read these things. This is a terrible book. I recommend everybody goes out and picks this up. It's amazing. It's brain candy. This sucks. But we tried to do Art Deco Miami. There was a pink Cadillac involved, whatever. So I think we were doing something nice with this, and the creative director at William Morrow really liked it. So he just asked us, what, can you do some tweaks to it? Can you make the car a little bigger? Can you jazz up the type a little bit? So we made the car a little bit bigger, and we tried a couple of shots at jazzing up the type, which really meant making it bigger. And then he asked us to take the counters, don't fill in the counters, and this ended up being the final cover. And it's like, yeah, all right. I mean, it's not, whatever. It kind of looks like a big book maybe, and I think it's okay still. I like the image. So we sent this off, and oftentimes, working the way I do with publishers, you don't hear anything for a long time. And I was at the bookstore the other day finding these other books that I was showing you, and I see this. And I'm like, holy shit. Wow. And so, of course, as a book jacket designer, I'm always going back to the back flap to see who had to put this thing away. I mean, you know, this is like taking your dog out and back and shooting it. Thank you. Thank you. When I saw this, I went, "Ah!" In the bookstore. Like 8 people looked over. Six, deadlines are good. Deadlines are especially good, and you got to think glass half full when you're working for the New York Times and doing op-ed pieces for them. This is something I've been doing and I've really enjoyed doing over about the same span that I've been in New York. I was originally recruited by Nicholas Bleckman, who was then the op-ed page creative director. And Nicholas had this idea about bringing in people who wouldn't traditionally fit into the role of an illustrator, not, you know, the type of work that you normally see on this type of page would be a political cartoon. And Nicholas had this idea that graphic designers could bring typography, they could bring a different sensibility. So I started doing these for the Times. Now, I say deadlines are good. What I tried to do is, and this can get ridiculous, and so what I did was I picked out 5 of the quickest op-ed illustrations I've ever done. And I'm talking 5 minutes here. 5 minutes. The nature of news, of course, is that it's always changing and it's always news. So you could have plans that were in place for 3 or 4 days, and in 5 minutes before the page is going to close, something breaks. And that's what happened here. This was the night that the Clinton's grand jury testimony was released, the video. This is the one where he said, you know, depends on how you define the word is. And we were like, I'm sorry, it's got to be, it has to, we have to throw that other art out or push it off a day. So, you know, a video still, word in the text, bam, done, you know. Whether this is, you know, a successful piece or not, I don't know because I'm so close to it, but definitely the quickest one I've ever done. This was another one where, you know, dealing with editors, something got killed at the last minute. This was a piece about a bunch of little wars happening in Africa. And again, I think this was 7 minutes maybe. It's going back in time. That was the quickest one. This is the second quickest. I'm running around the newsroom trying to find a silhouette of Africa and, you know, grabbing it, throwing it on the Xerox machine, 5 or 6 copies, stabbing it with a pencil, stabbing my leg in the process, and scanning it, and in it goes. 7 minutes. This was a little longer. I think this was like 8 or 9 minutes. This is just about email and it being casual and more like conversation. And this may have been 10 minutes. And I absolutely love this one. This is fairly recent, but it was a letters to the editor. And, you know, this is $175. So you know what? If you only got 10 minutes to do it, you can actually make money doing this. So this was letters to the editor that were responding to an editorial about the woeful state of intelligence and that there are no Arab translators. So if you read this backwards, it says an attack is imminent. from right to left. My hand it comes in handy quite often here in these quickies. But I really like that one. I swear they didn't even, it was so quick that they didn't even have a chance I could have written something that really was like a national security breach. Maybe that did scare the hell out of people subliminally. And also, I think sometimes the challenge and the time, it just becomes like a game. It's like, this is really a fucked up challenge, and no other graphic designer in the world would take it, but so it's a great challenge to take. This was the most boring editorial I've ever read. This was pre-September 11th, and it was about Congress fighting over budget surpluses. So it's something good that they're fighting about. And it's like anything financial, it's just like, oh, when it's about murder or war or, then you got something to work with. It's about budget deficits, you don't. And that's what I really love about this one, because I think it works really well. The form is in the form of finance, and it was quick. Back to silkscreen, I was asked to do a poster for an organization called Downtown for Democracy. And they asked me for a silkscreen poster for an event called Where's My Democracy? And it was this kind of amazing reading fundraiser that involved some pretty amazing people, Susan Sontag, Dave Eggers, Lou Reed, Carol Joyce Oates, etc. And this is an example of way overworking something. Like, this is what my work looks like when I have way too much time and to put too much pressure on myself. And this is a really big paper, a poster actually, not that big, but big. And I decided I was going to silkscreen this as well. It was going to be a two-color poster. And the idea was that each of the readers would sign their posters. They were using it as a fundraiser as well, and they were going to sell the posters. So I was like all hung up on like, why would someone buy this poster after the event? Why would they buy this poster with all this information on it? And so that was an idea that I had. Anyway, I overworked this thing, and this is what I was printing. And the thing was the next morning, like I had to deliver these posters the next morning. And I took 2 months to do this thing. I was noodling it with it. So the night before, it's time to print. So I have 300 pieces of paper, and I print the white first. And then I go to print this, and this is the only pull that was clean. I just could not, it was just too big. I don't know what it was, but everything was filling in. It was a disaster. I burned 3 screens, and it was just not going to work. Now it's 4 in the morning. I got 5 hours, and I've got 300 of these. And I'm like, that's fuck. It's it. They're just not going to get their posters. I don't know. Whatever. The world's not going to come to an end, but if they don't get their posters. But again, I think there was just this. There's something inside of me that just said, you know what? This is fucked up. I'm going to stay up the rest of the night and figure out how to solve this. So, knowing that it needed to be done at 9 in the morning, and knowing that the printing problems I was having with all the fine typography, I'm like, okay, it's got to be something I can print. It's got to be something I can print out and tile on my laser writer. I got acetate here, and it's just something I have to be sure, 100% sure I can print. And in a half an hour, I designed this, which I think is so much better than the first one, so much better. And this was such a fast, down and dirty thing. And like, I was done with it, and they got their posters. I don't know if they like them, but I don't know. There's something great about this for me, and maybe it has more to do with the process, but I love when these things happen and when they help you redefine how you look at your work in a way. Because I think I've always been somebody who didn't think of deadlines as being your friend. I've always thought of them as the enemy, Oh shit, if I only had another week, if I only had another couple days. So I'm trying to embrace the spontaneity more these days. Number 7, sometimes things get out of control and never leave the office. Back to book jackets. Over the years, I've gotten better at identifying when a book jacket is careening out of control with variations. And in the past, because of my stubbornness and because of some of the qualities I mentioned earlier, something's not working, I'll just keep trying and keep trying. And 10, 12, 15, 20 comps pop out over a 2-month period, getting paid $1,500, rent's due next week. Not a good combination. As you start doing these things, you start realizing where to pull the plug and where the publisher just doesn't know what he wants, and you're just being used to pump out idea after idea. But still, this was a book that I was asked to do fairly recently, a few years ago. And I show this one as an example because I like some of the covers that never got done. Killed work is what I'm talking about here. Work that never sees the light of day. But this one was interesting because there was an element to it that made me stick with it. I think I did maybe 10 different covers for this thing eventually. And the reason is that the author, Robert Moody, is from my hometown, Binghamton, New York. First time, like, another creative person from Binghamton, New York? What, are you crazy? And so that was one thing. But also, the story, Father of the Man, was set in Binghamton, New York in 1982. I was there in 1982. I got to do a good cover for this book. Now, I hadn't mentioned this, but as an external designer, the last thing the publisher wants is any contact between me and the author. I think they think we'd run away and do something that is going to cost them money, which they're probably right. So I never talked to Robert. He doesn't know I was working on this thing probably. And I don't know how many of these covers he even saw, frankly. But it starts great. I love this. This was a book about a bus driver in Binghamton, New York, who's in his, I think he was in his 70s at the time, and he's having flashbacks to World War II, D-Day, while he's driving his bus. Turns out that his son was lost in the Vietnam War, and the father is dealing with guilt for kind of forcing the son into the military to straighten him up because he was getting in trouble all the time. So it's kind of about the father and the son following in the father's footsteps. So that's where this cover came from. I really liked this, but they felt it was too abstract. I even had my dad go out and shoot a memorial in Binghamton to create a link to it in some way. And this was, I just rearranged the typography on a memorial in the Broome County Veterans Memorial Arena where the Dusters used to play. So I had my dad out with his digital camera shooting stuff for me. Again, he's an engineer, so that was pretty funny. That photo shoot was pretty funny. They didn't like that one. I did maybe 4 or 5 before this one. This was, I've spelled the author's name wrong. That's always a no-no when you're presenting work to a client, and especially when you're presenting it to the author. Something a little more open-ended. There's a part in the book where the father hijacks a bus and demands his son from the military, who he believes is just, he's not missing, that for some reason he's not letting him see his son. They didn't like that. They asked for something more about flashbacks maybe. So this one was an idea that involved a printed cover and then an acetate jacket. So D-Day is on the acetate, and Binghamton, a typical road, is in the background there upside down. So it's present day, past at the same time. I loved this too, but they killed it. And then finally I stumbled upon this idea, and they were like, what about something like Demonology? Like, fuck, okay. I give up. So, taking a father and a son that aren't in military, they just have regular civilian clothes, but then painting them like little army guys, I thought was kind of a nice idea and a nice twist. So they loved this finally, and the author loved it, and it was happening. And this cover got killed because at the last minute someone realized that it was another jacket that Random House was producing that had a Green Army man on the cover. Dead. Number 8, I know nothing. I teach at the School of Visual Arts and have for the last 4 years. I've taught ever since I left grad school in 1990 at various places. In West Virginia 1 year, in Baltimore, a couple other places. And I've always been trying to find a situation where you get all of the good of teaching and none of the bad. And some of you who may teach, the bad is unmotivated students being put in a position where you're somebody's surrogate parent or something and having to like scold people. That stuff's just not cool, especially when you come in from the outside and you're doing it because you want to get back into this environment. So I was approached by Richard Wild, the head of SVA, to teach one of his portfolio classes. And I'll just quickly describe the way he has it set up. There's a number of portfolio teachers. All the graphic design seniors are required to take a portfolio class. So it's a year with one person, and that person can decide what that class is going to be. And they're basically at the end, they're just required to, we're requiring the students to produce some kind of document of their work, and these are undergrads. So Paula Scher teaches one, Karen Goldberg, James Victori, Peter Buchanan Smith now. Real interesting group of people, and Louise Feely, some pretty amazing people. And I pretty much had free reign to design the class that I wanted to design. I have been, as I said, I've been teaching since 1990, and before that, if you count my TAing at Kent State University in grad school. And I have, as I said, been interested in trying to develop something that one, could alleviate some of the negatives of teaching and accentuate some of the positives, and two, to get to a place where I'm avoiding having the students do hypothetical work. It always would drive me crazy when I would feel like I was obliged to have them design a fake book jacket or a fake logo for a bank or something. Because I always felt that what the students would do is that they would ape a bank logo or ape a book jacket, and in a way they're avoiding doing what a graphic designer actually does, which is solve problems and respond to things that are out of their control, like a deadline, or it's got to be big, or whatever it happens to be, 2 colors. So what I did was I developed a class where they each had to identify a topic or an idea that they were going to explore with their work. So in essence, that's their client, and it's also the way they bring themselves into it. So at the beginning, we did a lot of thinking about what that thing for each of them would be. They settled on it, and then I had my friend Peter Buchanan Smith come in for the first assignment, and I asked him to develop an assignment that they could use then to learn about their topic, which they now have to start researching and learning about. So Peter came up with the idea of having them do a flyer, design a flyer. And the idea is to explore your topic with a flyer. You have to hang 500 of these around the city, and you have to take out a voicemail box. And the idea is to get as many phone calls as you possibly can. Very specific problem here we're solving. So this is one of the flyers. This is a student of mine, Jun Mu Kong, and his topic was nonsense. So he designed this flyer to really make it look like, is it serious? Is it a joke? What is it? This was another one, which I thought was pretty great. And this actually led to an amazing virtual community that this student developed called Human Traffic. And it's basically, she set up a series of human traffic reporters, and so people would call in, like, I'm walking up 23rd Street on the north side of the street. It's a mess on this side, there's construction. Take the south side of the street, this kind of thing. Really great stuff. It was really interesting to see how the students reacted when some of the students were getting no calls at all, and they were really bummed out. And then someone went crazy, like this student, Wendy. Her topic was conversion. So she did this thing, and this went nuts and went off the charts. She got thousands of calls. Newspapers, magazines, people wanting to make dinner for her. I think she even got a marriage proposal. So she went nuts. I mean, she probably ended up hanging 1,000 of these things when it was all said and done. But it's so funny, like, and it took everyone by surprise. It's just something so innocent and simple, but like it compelled people to make a phone call, which, you know, for a graphic designer to learn and understand how you can do that, or at least see when it happens, is definitely something that can help all of us. So this student's topic was process, and just so happened his wife was pregnant. So he pasted these all over Manhattan. So I want to give you I got some of his, the reactions to this flyer.
Yeah, I was just calling to name your daughter. I think a good name would be Orange Jose. You spell it like orange juice, but call her Orange Jose. That'd be awesome, okay? Bye. Hey, we're thinking of some options for the kid's name. I like Iris. I think Iris is a classic name, very beautiful. Grace, also a very classic name, very beautiful.
Eba.
Also, you know, old is new again.
Eba.
Now, we also have
Eba.
Ebba,
E-B-B-A.
Ebba, E-B-B-A,
Penelope.
and Penelope.
A.K.A. Penny.
Right, with Penelope, the kid's going to be called Penny, so keep that in mind. You know, you always got to think about what they're going to be called by their friends. So if you do something like Grace Iris, there's not much that people can do to change it. So, you know, you may want to stick with a solid one syllable, because in New York, we all go to one syllable names. So just think it out. Good luck with your daughter. Good luck with your future.
Hi there, my name is Lori Leibovitz. I saw your poster on the Lower East Side, and I'm a journalist, and I was hoping to talk to you about how you got the idea to do this and what kind of response you've been getting. I work at salon.com and freelance for a number of publications. My number today...
Hi, my name is Jason George. I'm a reporter with the New York Times. I'm really interested by this idea. I'm going to give you my cell phone number. It's 347-277-8802. I'd love to talk to you, see what kind of responses you're getting. Really interested. Again, Jason George, the New York Times, 347-277-8802. Thanks. Hi, my name is Jason George. I called before. I'd like to call again. I'm with the New York Times. I'm a writer with the New York Times, and would love to do an article about this naming thing. Let me give my cell phone number. It's 347-277-8802. That's 347-277-8802.
Jill, J-I-L-L, the all-American name. That's all you have to do. I want to tell you, I've seen your flyer on the corner of Remington Street and Ludlow Street, New York, 10002, PC. So I saw it there. I call in. You're a very interesting flyer. I wish you the best for your baby girl, and have yourself a great life ahead of you. Thank you.
Another project that we did that I was really fond of was, I really loved to confront the students with their preconceptions and their prejudices that they might not think they have. So one project I asked them to do, one assignment I give them is, I call it the cute assignment. And they have to design a poster that is cute and that is huge. It's like 35 inches tall. And they have to explore their topic with it, but it has to be cute, and it has to, you know, I tell them there's going to be a special guest critic coming in and next week, and that, you know, we're trying to elicit this response, aw, you know, with your work, like literally. So I show up the next week with my mom, and this was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. My mom is not a designer. She's a retired occupational therapist. And I just want to, I don't know if we have time, I just want to quickly read the results of her critique of these posters, just a couple of them. I'm going to give you the one on the left and the one on the right. So the one on the left My mom says, I'll start with this one. And then I say, okay, so is it cute, Elaine? That's really cute. It might be cuter if there was some color in it, but wait, it says, and then color the picture. Oh, okay. It would appeal to a younger child who is into numbers, maybe a 6-year-old. They have to know their numbers to connect the numbers, so maybe a 6-year-old. I'm not sure how high the numbers go. This might be nice in a preschool, but I'm not sure how high they count. To catch the eye of a child, some color would be good, maybe a pastel color, but I think the idea of connected dots with the ponies is cute. Ponies are cute, and palaces are always in fairy tales. Me. Can you think of anything else that might make it cuter? Elaine. The tree on the right might make it too complicated and takes away from it. The stars are nice, they brighten it up, which is good, but the numbers should be bigger to get the idea across. Me, 0 to 10, I ask her to give a cuteness score, 0 being the least cute and 10 being the most cute. Elaine, I think I would give it an 8. As far as coloring, those flowers should be a size the child could color. It's kind of a cute idea. And then I ask her, does this remind you of anything? Do you recognize these ponies? When Sharon, my sister, was young, there was a doll that was a pony, but I can't remember. Me, I think it's a toy called My Pretty Pony. Elaine, right! I don't know if it's still out now. And I ask her, does this change how cute it is in any way? And she says, no. Okay, on to the next one. Elaine, this is a picture of, it looks like a tomato, I don't know. I'm not getting much from this as far as its cuteness goes. Kind of leaves me cold. It looks like some sort of vegetable and it's spurting a glob of something out. I don't know what. I think it might be a tomato changing to ketchup. This person doesn't know what cute is. Me, ouch. Elaine, well, I'm sorry, it does catch the eye because you would say, what the heck is that? Maybe it's cuter for it looks like a teapot. The white looks like a handle, I guess. Me, so you're seeing a teapot? I would never have seen that. Elaine, it doesn't say anything, so I don't know. So is there a theme? What about a score, 0 to 10? Elaine, it confuses me, so I'll give it a 2. I'm sorry. It's really not cute. The tomato throwing something out of it, it's sacrificing itself. When I look at it, I just think, what in the world is that? Anyway, on and on. It was the best. It was the best. One student did because one of the things that's typical is they just won't allow themselves to totally go there, really embrace the cute thing. And so one student did a picture of a woman's ass being tattooed, saying cute across. And here's my mom, in class looking at an ass. And this kid will never forget it. He turned bright red. She didn't know what to say about it. It was like watching a movie with sex in it with your parents. And something I always tell them, as graphic designers, we have to have an opinion about the world and the work we do, but cute isn't the place to make a stand, I mean, this isn't a liquor ad. I'm not asking you to design a bomb or anything. This is cute. It never hurt anybody. One other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the class is that I make them perform a piece on stage, and I wish I had a video of this, but maybe you're all going to be happy I don't after I show you what it is. This is Jeremy Diamond. He was a student of mine 2 years ago, and his topic was, what is difficult to endure is empowering to recall. So what he was doing with his work throughout the year was he was just kind of making it hard for himself, basically, at different levels. Now, so what they have to do is they have to be on stage. It's at my theater, Soho Repertory Theater. There's 75 people, an anonymous audience. Chip Kidd was there at this one. And they have to perform something that evokes or communicates their topic. So again, Jeremy's is what is difficult to endure is empowering to recall. So Jeremy basically comes out, there's no sound, he comes out with a bucket and a glass of water. He puts the bucket down and proceeds to self-induce vomiting. Now, this goes on for about 5 minutes, no kidding. He kept going, more kept coming out. The smell of vomit is wafting into the audience. He finishes finally and picks the bucket up and then starts fishing these things out of it, and he's biting them with his teeth, and it's typography. And he proceeds to paste it onto a poster and then deliver his message. Unbelievable. The people in the audience will never forget that performance. I don't know whether the smell of vomit is empowering to recall, but they'll certainly never forget it. Richard Wilde also gave me the opportunity to I don't teach this class this same way anymore. I did it for 3 years, and I figured that was enough. I am always saying that I want to learn as much as the students are from this experience, and I feel like they get more out of it, and certainly I do. But we had a mini retrospective. This was the poster for it. I posed, Jason Fulford shot a series of these tongue-in-cheek photographs, analogies of the classroom. And this is me sending 3 students out with their unconventional portfolios into the world. This is the poster. And the exhibit, I've never done this before, so this was a huge undertaking. It was almost 3,000 square feet. It was basically the results of this portfolio class. So we had 2 large rooms from top to bottom, left to right. And it's hard to look at it this way, but we had these cases built that had phrases on it that ran through the rooms. It was a consistent element. In the corner on the one in the top, way back in the corner are the flyers, and there were headphones hanging that had results from that project, and there were 3,000 images on the wall. This almost killed myself and 12 students who were volunteering, but it was an amazing, amazing process, some of the things in the cases. This is Mess Up Man. This was the same student who did the pigeon flyer. He got onto, one thing I have them design is a product that's an exploration of their topic, and he went crazy with the products. He came up with stuff called two-dimensional furniture. It was all flat furniture. It's meant to go against the wall, and it's kind of painted in different colors, so it looks three-dimensional, but it's flat, perfect for the New York apartment. He also came up with this idea of mess-up service, so that's what this guy is. Basically, when you don't have any mess left, call these guys. They'll give you the quality mess you need, and they'll walk through any stuff like that. Okay, number 9, we're getting there. The Poorhouse, which is like what I like to call self-authorship. This was a book which I've been dabbling in lately. This is a book that I co-authored in 2003 called Hello World, A Life in Ham Radio. This is the cover. This is the title in Morse code. This all started with my co-author, Danny Gregory, finding a collection of cards at a flea market. He didn't know what they were. He took them home, and he found out that these things were called Qsl cards. Ham radio operators exchange them when they make a contact over the air for the first time. These cards have the call sign of the ham, the radio operator. They also have a lot of information about when the contact took place. And this collection, it turned out, belonged to one man, a man named Jerry Powell, W2OJW, who was located in Hackensack, New Jersey, and it was the results of 75 years worth of an obsessive hobby. There were cards from 1927 in there, all the way up to 1999. And the cards are beautiful. I'll show you some of them. So we went to Princeton Architectural Press, and neither of us having done this before, convinced them to do a book on ham radio, of all things. And we started learning about the hobby. And this is the beginning of the book. We felt like to start talking about what Qsl cards are, and a story that we thought was really interesting, that of someone obsessed with a hobby for 75 years, an arcane, almost, we thought, non-existent hobby that actually is really thriving, but it's a total subculture. We had to explain what ham radio was first. So the beginning of the book starts with kind of an elementary school primer on ham radio. So this is a ham radio, the basic equipment of a ham. The inside front cover opens up, And there's a glossary of ham radio, and hams have their own language, so we have some of that defined. There are signals, there's Morse code, there are famous hams, there's technology involved. These are hams. Hams come in all shapes and sizes and live all over the world. This book is about a particular ham named Jerry Powell. Jerry was an avid ham radio operator from 1928 until his death in 2000. He was born in rural Kansas, then became an aerospace engineer and lived in Hackensack, New Jersey with his wife and 2 sons. This is a typical call, CQ, CQ, CQ. This is W2OJW calling CQ. This is a QSL card. Whenever hams contact on the air for the first time, they exchange specially designed postcards in the mail. These QSL cards are physical proof that a radio contact actually took place. Each ham's card is different, featuring the call sign for a station, details about the call and the gear used, and the words and pictures that tell more about himself and his home. And these are some of the QSL cards. So we present in the book all of his calls in chronological order. We have an area that we call Anatomy of a QSL that defines what all this lingo is. And from this information, you get all kinds of information about who sent it and when the call was, April 25th, 1947. It was a voice communication, not Morse code, etc. More QSL cards. And we knit it into Jerry's life, and we also did quite a bit of research about the cards, where they came from. Since we didn't have Jerry to talk to about his hobby, we kind of had to do some backwards research. We went to visit his house, talked to some of his neighbors, eventually talked to his son, found out about him, and got into ham radio. These are hams. And eventually, Danny and I got so involved that we became hams ourselves. You actually have to take a test. It's licensed by the FCC. It's illegal to go on the air without a license on the ham bands. So I am now KC2KHN. This is the middle of the book. It's a gatefold that what we did was we took the world and, of course, made Hackensack, New Jersey, the center of the world. And we isolated each one of the calls he made by decade. So you can actually find the card from the map, and you can find the location on the map from the card. So we kind of cross-referenced it in this way. And the hams ate this up. It's like, I don't know what this is the equivalent of, but it's like any ham to have his hobby mapped out like this. Ooh, yeah. And this is the back cover. I have been doing this little publication called Please Post, and this is about as little and DIY as it can get. It's a newsprint, and it's basically 8 posters folded down, and the only type on it is in the lower right-hand corner there, and it just says Please Post. It's got the volume number on it and a little bit more information. I've only done 2 issues of this, so I haven't really figured out where it's going from here, but we do our own distribution. Basically involves my car and, the trunk. And this was before the pre-election, and I just have a thing for outer space and UFOs, so I just did an issue, my first issue's on outer space. And it just so happened that it folded very nicely in with some politics, which is funny when that happens. The only identifier is a small logo that's up in the upper left-hand corner that's, basically Please Post. So we're encouraging people to take this publication and post the posters. One of the posters is an official, well, I redesigned it, but it's an official UFO sightings questionnaire that is put out by the Center for UFO Studies. And this is on the Chicago, Illinois, and this is on their website. So I don't know how many they got of these actually filled in. They probably will go, what the hell? Where's this coming from? Awesome. This rather phallic-looking object, actually, when I was designing it, I actually did make it look like a vibrator penis kind of originally, and my wife was like, that's too much. So I abstracted it a little bit. this is kind of a different way of saying we are here. I got a thing for Andy Williams. I don't know why, but I kind of like that idea. You are here, but it's Andy Williams. Of course, the '66 Ford Galaxy. This is one of my favorite ones in the group because that's actually a blurry. I mean, I didn't blur it, but this is one of the evidence photographs from the Nevada, the famous one, Area 54, Roswell. Yeah, I mean, it's basically like just debris, and like the website you go to, it's like photographs like this. See. I didn't do anything to that photo. It's not cropped. That's the photo that was on the website. See, that's funny, right? And again, folding it into politics, this was right when, no weapons of mass destruction. And this just explains so much for me. And I drew this too. I didn't mention, I got into graphic design because I used to draw like this, except when I was in high school, I used to draw band logos and like Camaros and stuff. And I stopped totally. I found graphic design and I just didn't need to draw anymore, and I've started again. So it's kind of great. I haven't gotten any better, but I think the concepts are getting better. The second issue, sadly, I'm sorry to inflict these last two on you, because I'm thinking many of you in the audience are still smarting from the election. Of course you are. So I was trying to do something, this was right before the election, and I was trying to do something positive, I didn't want it to be negative. I didn't want it to be anti-Bush. I wanted it to be pro-Kerry, which was really fucking hard. It just was really hard. So this was an attempt at it. And this was another attempt. This was a piece that Nicholas Bleckman and Christoph Niemann did. But they had a series of these. They had George Washington voting for Kerry. They had Superman voting for Kerry. And Santa Claus voting for Kerry. And then the last part was the thing that actually did happen. But so I wanted to leave you with kind of a thought, and it certainly stems from my interest in doing things like Please Post and other things that have maybe a political motivation, but maybe tie into a larger idea that about maybe it's not making your own way, but maybe it is kind of what's in this introduction on some level, preserve a sense of creative self in the bigger picture. The one thing I believe as a graphic designer is my responsibility, and I got this from George Gross, the German Dadaist, was that he said that artists, and I'm grouping graphic designers in as well, have an obligation to give their testimony. That they are probably too small to really make any difference in the world. After all, he did much of his work in the pre- and post-World War I era. But the thing that sticks with me is this part of the quote, that you must give your testimony. And I don't know where I go from here, but that's one thing that I think I probably have been concentrating on, and will continue to, hopefully will be able to continue to concentrate on with my work from where I go from here. Thank you very much. We don't have to, really. Thank you very much, everyone.